Talking about happiness in adversity or a tragic event, I would, I would still like to know your perspective concerning this. Should parents be friends to their children? Because this is something, even
Mm.
among my friends, I have had a discussion before.
Yes.
And my very good friend and co-host, Tiasha Kasteleka Somali, said that no, I am not friends with my children, I am their parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
Mm,
the best approach, especially considering the example that you have raised? And it is our duty as parents to be able, I mean, at least to give our children
mm,
some structure. We are not talking of abuse here, but
mm,
looking at the situation in Western world today, can we really, can that form of parenting
mm,
ever be
mm,
accepted again?
Well, I think okay. Generally speaking,
Mhm.
of course, we need to keep boundaries. We can't just act
Yeah.
as friend only. So we need to keep boundaries in a way that we can play the role of parents. And that's the kind of relationship. But then different people have kind of different styles. So some people they become more friendly, or they may be a bit more permissive, and other people they tend to be a bit more rigid. And I think it's also a personality thing, which is okay. There is this interesting model, which actually is actually from based on the attachment theory, and it's being used across cultures
Mhm.
that first of all points out how it's important to be good enough parents and not perfect parents. So the good enough, it's good, it's enough for the parent, for the children to grow well. And it points out the two sides of being strong, wise, being strong and wise. So that's the thing. So you do still want to be the one that's there to contain and protect your children and guide your children. So you do give some structure, you give some rules, but you also show some warmth and some empathy. And as long as there's boundaries in the relationship and that's clear that you're not friend, even if you're friendly, and maybe sometimes you act like a friend and you're close to your children and they share things with you, and that's great. But the boundaries are still there. You're still acting as a parent. It's a bit like when you have those double roles, those double roles we talked about in our collaborations, like
Yes.
having one role and another role with a different person with different functions, how difficult it is. But if you can manage, if you know exactly where your boundaries are, then it's clear, and that's no
You
issue with
know,
that.
thank you so very much. And I like the fact that you said parents, we should be good enough and not be perfect. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. So one, it's difficult to be parents. At the same time, you are not supposed to be perfect. It's the only area in your life you are allowed to be mediocre. Don't be perfect, just be good enough. Is that not
Yes,
crazy?
yes,
That's
yes,
that's
absolutely.
that's so
That
interesting. Be good
yes,
enough, don't be
good
perfect.
enough. Good enough is good. It's healthy.
It's
Good
good.
enough is healthy. Perfect is impossible, possibly unhealthy, because you will be one extreme or another. So it's okay to make mistakes sometimes in parenting and in relationships. I guess in general, we're not machines and we're not perfect.
Then, you know, in line with our topic, to be very honest, this is something that is very interesting because we live in a moment. I believe you may have come across it or heard about children that grew up, adult children, for instance, or people that are no longer in talking terms with their parents. Because, like I said, I'm surprised that you said parents, you should be good enough and not be perfect. But oftentimes we as children expect our parents to be our hero, be perfect, superman, superwoman, and everything. And most of these things we do not know. We take their love and discipline to mean punishment when in real sense they mean well for us. I am not saying by any means that parents could be perfect. Of course, that's the reason why some children have issues with them. So they no longer talk with their parents because of what may have happened 10, 15 years ago. Probably the father wasn't the best, quote unquote, that they would have, the way they would have wanted it, or the mother wasn't there, was always at work, and a lot of things that today we now consider and used as parameters to judge if a parent was good. Probably 10, 40, 50 years ago wasn't that way. So
Mm.
in this kind of instances, is it possible? Is there a place for forgiveness for oneself and even for those that may have wronged us? Why am I asking this? Some people, I believe, may have been in a prolonged form of bitterness that they themselves may have defined as an adversity, as a long-term tragic
Mm.
effect or trauma that they are going through. But I'm happy
Mm.
today that you were able to make it clear on a surface level the things that we can at least describe as being adversity and some other things that could simply be trauma or the way that has to do with our personality and the way we
Mm.
process things. So if a person have this kind of bitter relationship with their parents and no longer talk to them, they are no longer in good terms, but they
Mm.
themselves personally are going through pains and agony because of this non-existent relationship between them and their parents anymore.
Mm. Mm.
Can forgiveness be helpful in this kind of circumstances? Is there a place for forgiveness when one is dealing with an adversity?
Well, is there a place? I mean, it depends on the person. If there is a place, in the sense that, of course, forgiveness is possibly a way to move forward and just don't get stuck in rage and hatred towards someone else. But it's also not something that you can just decide to have and not have. I mean, you can also say that, but it's hard to feel that, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to forgive because, I don't know, my father was an alcohol addict and he didn't know what he was doing. And
Good.
that's why we end up fighting and he hit me and whatever. So you can say that, but the actual forgiveness is when you feel it, that you don't have hatred towards him anymore. And that's not that easy. It's definitely a healthy thing, but sometimes it requires more efforts and more work. Depends on different people
Okay.
react in different ways, and it's not easy to just tell someone you should forgive him. It's not that, it doesn't work that way. It's hard. So some people need to actually go through work themselves, like an internal work, where that part that is being hurt can be soothed and can be validated. And then at the end of that sort of process, they might conceive forgiving the, the person that hurt them. But because there has been some kind of relieving of the pain, some kind of witnessing of the pain.
Mhm.
So this is what psychotherapy is meant to be doing when someone is stuck with pain that's just not resolved and is affecting the person. So yeah, it's beautiful, and this is definitely an option, but sometimes not easy to achieve that. Absolutely.